Check, 1, 2. Check, 1, 2. And Johnny, we are live.
Oh.
Yep, we
Check
are
1,
live.
2.
Check, 1, 2. Check 1, 2, everybody. Check 1, 2. What's going on, everybody? Justin Thomas here. This is Before the Dust Settles, of course, on Top Shelf Fandom. I'm here with my co-host, Johnny B. Crazy from House of the Conqueror, Johnny Bragg from House of the Conqueror. Well, get your pseudonyms right. And yes, of course, alongside Mackenzie L. Burns from the Episode Club, and the new addition to the crew, a late addition, but I'm telling you guys, you're going to love him. It's John from Cortex Vids. And then we have our special guest, the lovely Jason Schenkel from the Nattercast. So we'll just go through. Johnny, introduce yourself, and then do the tech specs, and we'll go down the line from there. But we couldn't be more excited to be talking about this penultimate episode of Westworld.
Yes. Thank you, Justin. This is going to be a good time. We got a fantastic panel. Of course, I'm Johnny from House of the Conqueror, and let's do this. Westworld Season 3, Episode 7, Past Pawn, the 27th installment in the series. It's 62 minutes long, written by Gina Atwater and Denise Thay, directed by Helen Shaver, and the title Past Pawn means in chess, a passed pawn is a pawn with no opposing pawns to prevent it from advancing to the eighth rank or to the opposing opponent's end of the board, where you can usually exchange it, you want to, with a queen and make your pawn a queen. And we can say that Caleb is definitely the passed pawn here. He just got a free ride to the end of the game. And yes, we're almost at the end. Back to you, Justin.
Excellent. This is a chess centric channel, so it's important to get those details correct. No, thank you, Johnny, as always. Next, I wanted to introduce our new addition, John from Cortex Videos. Say what's up.
Hey guys, great to be here. I mean, what an episode. Really enjoyed it. And I'm going to be doing a breakdown tomorrow. So, join me on there if you want to check me out on Cortex Videos.
He's making time his bitch. He's in the UK right now. It's 3 a.m. So he means check out my video in a few hours. Thank you so much, John, for being here. And if I slip on your name a little bit, it's just because there's that John conspiracy with YouTubers. Mackenzie L. Burns from the Episode Club. Say what's up.
Hi, everybody. Yes, it's me, Mackenzie, also known as the Episode Club in the chat. So if you have any questions or thoughts you want directed towards the panel, at me, at the Episode Club, and I'll be watching the chat for you guys. And I think we have some good questions coming your way from 2 special callers. I know Justin will talk about that in a second, but yeah.
No, absolutely. She's running the Mesa Hub right now. We have 2 video callers coming in with excellent questions, I hear. And last but definitely not least, Jason Schenkel, the Nattercast, the one and only, barely an inconvenience, my friend, my pitch meeting friend. Say what's up to everybody.
I don't know.
Oopsie.
Whoopsie, wow. Hey guys, Jason Schenkel, the Nattercast. We're you can pretty much find us on Facebook. You search for Nattercast. We do all different kinds of TV shows. We were mostly covering Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones back in the day, and we're on Better Call Saul now. And I always like to get a little Westworld in there, so I want to thank Justin for inviting me on Top Shelf. So please come to Facebook and search for either Nattercast or the phrase "I can't stop watching" and come join our groups. As a matter of fact, the Better Call Saul group is running nuts these days. It's just people keep piling on in and want to see what's going to be up with Kim Wexler. So
it's almost like they can't stop watching. No,
they can't stop watching.
Yeah, if you want to know the marketing genius behind that, it's this gentleman right here. Yeah, so no, I can't thank you enough. You've been wonderful to me always.
Thank you.
Very insightful. As somebody says, casual watcher of Westworld. Yeah, yeah. Let's let this stream just play out, and you will see who's calling who a casual after this, because I definitely probably won't be the right vernacular for you.
A little more casual this year than I usually am, but I've been paying attention.
Yeah, it's like a rocket scientist that takes like 1 week off. All right. First off, I do want to go around and just get general vibes about the episode, just some clean fun, and we want this in the chat as well. I liked it. I thought it did what it needed to do. It definitely laid down your backstory, your origin for Caleb. I got some foibles. I've got some issues with a little bit of it, but I thought it was interesting. The injection of Solomon being so prevalent in this game, this end game, was very interesting to me. Altogether, I'd say 7 out of 10. Good penultimate episode, did what it needed to do, set up the final showdown. Kick it over to you, Johnny, then John, Mackenzie, and our great guest.
Yeah, I didn't know that ranking threw me off, but I would have to definitely agree with you. A little bit drawn out, maybe somewhat excessive to get to the end point with Caleb, but still, I liked it. There were some cool things. Some HAL 9000. We got literally a schizophrenic artificial intelligence in this episode, so that is a wild card. I don't know if I've heard of a wild card like that in a long time, but we're gonna see what happens with it. Maeve is on a rampage. My God, she is just murdering people, literally left and right. And we got Clementine back. There's a few things to be happy about in this episode. So
For
I'm gonna
sure.
have a good time talking about it.
For sure. That's why we do the stream. John, how'd you feel?
Oof. I mean, I really liked the episode, but I think there were a lot more questions than there were a lot of answers too, but there were a lot more questions than I was anticipating. In a way, I thought that for a penultimate episode, they would kind of, lead up into this final episode with a lot of the information there. I think Caleb, though, really did steal the show in this episode. I think, right from that first frame of them arriving in Mexico with the white and black horse, Dolores and Caleb, they really did show you that he was going to be that passed pawn that, is the weapon, I guess.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you pinned that in the chat. That's what that film school was all for. That's why you got that degree, my friend, because you nailed it down. I definitely, I'm with you too, and we'll get into it about how many questions were still left. We kind of just got confirmation about Caleb's past being a little bit shady, but we'll get into it. Mackenzie, how'd you feel?
I overall liked it. I felt like the way that they ended the episode is perfect for what's going to happen next episode. We're still missing like at least one chunk of Caleb's backstory that connects it all together. I think there's something that's still missing that we don't know about. But overall, I enjoyed it. The Maeve stuff at the end was a little odd, but because she was like talking but not talking, but it was all right. I enjoyed it otherwise. So yeah.
Nolan being Nolan, as Jason likes to say. Jason, what do you think?
Overall, I liked it. I was positive. Definitely getting more information about Caleb, I thought was worthwhile. It is, like I said, I said Nolan's gonna Nolan, right? And I'm like, okay, I wonder if we're gonna find out that he killed his friend. And so, the Nolans love survivor guilt, particularly in romantic relationships, but I guess also here in a wartime or a coworker relationship. And so I kind of felt like, well, if that's gonna be the twist, that's a very predictable twist for a Nolan story. So I'm hoping there's something richer to it. But the idea that they're editing the memories in order to get you to conform and not be an outlier in this space, and that's the same thing as like the reveries interfering with the old hosts. I really have liked the way that this season mirrors season, especially season one, but actually the combined seasons. It's like we're seeing everything that happened in those first two seasons reflected with the tables turned.
Yes.
And Caleb's backstory, I think, really did that for me. I did find that the AI felt, I was saying in the chat thing, it's like, okay, it's BioShock, it's System Shock, it's like these crazy AI video games where it always breaks down to the AI's been manipulating you the whole time because you're playing a video game. Of course, you've been manipulated the whole time. You signed up for that.
What?
Right. Right. Would you kindly? Right. So I kind of felt like there was a would you kindly thing going on.
You used to work for EA Sports, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I know I worked for Maxis. I did Sims.
Don't you diss? Oh, my God, so much more detrimental, dude. Oh, that's damning.
Well, we were simulating, breaking people down to 8 motives and that kind of thing.
Okay, we'll get back.
But anyway, very positive, and I'm glad to see a lot more in Caleb. And I do agree that I'm going to want to get a little more information out of the finale.
All right, we're going to come back to the soul enslavement of these digital beings, though. You're not out of the woods on that, though. Good segue, though. Okay. You're like, but no, positive stuff. Yeah, but only 8 emotions. So the price of being a genius, eh? All right, so we did start off the episode with we got another pal. We all pretty much were guessing because they had Clementine's number that matched up with season 2's number. On the iPad, we play a little bit of Redditing, go back and look at some freeze frames, and we can tell. So we got her, and we also got, and I'm blanking on the name because I'm just him. I believe it's the Maeve version of in Samurai World is.
Well, Armistice.
Yeah.
It's
It's
Armistice.
Japanese armistice.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. So
That's what the tattoos do.
yeah, so we got a nice, cool little scene, but we see Charlotte, and this is gonna be my first question to you, panel. Is she playing with for Serac now? You know, because they say your master, and they say him, and she is clearly going after the Dolori, the other Dolori, which is for all intents and purposes herself, you know, who's obviously deviated through different interactions. I know people changed, talked about it, did a whole video, but I found it to be very interesting, very entertaining. But like, I do have questions about how Clementine was brought back, and so forth. Go to you first on that, Johnny.
Well, all right. So first off, with the Serac, so Dolores thinks that Maeve just works for Serac. The Hell issue is a surprise. I think they expect her to be dead. She wasn't supposed to make it out of Insight. She definitely wasn't supposed to survive that explosion, and I think she will be the oversight that will be Dolores' real downfall. I think Hell is the one that's going to actually kill Dolores. She has actually just been helping Maeve right now, but I don't know how deep that goes. I think she has a plan for Serac as well, because she's going to blame Serac for the death of her family. Now, with bringing Clementine back, we saw a few martial arts skills, and I think it was the second season or the first season, and I put them in my last week's video. And she almost did the exact same things. I just believe it's a comfort for Maeve, and it's one of the few people that she's really that close to. And it makes sense. The one that doesn't make sense is Japanese Armistice. I'm not complaining about it. She's badass. But as far as the tie with her, Maeve didn't really have a connection with her. It was the other Armistice. But, you know, they're in Singapore. Maybe they need to blend in.
Yeah.
Who the hell knows? Right?
Yeah, and also kind of to set up that little bit of juxtaposition between somebody that's staying true, because they say they stole Musashi's identity, right? That it's like almost it's disrespectful. It's definitely something that they take to heart. Like, you're using his image and you're using his form and you're posing as him and you're appropriating him, essentially. It's like, how dare you? So they needed somebody close to Musashi to have that personal vendetta, to have that personal emotional attachment to it. Like, how dare you? Like, if somebody replicated you, I'd be like, hey, that's not cool. I mean, I wouldn't cut it.
Well, it makes sense from a story point of view.
Yeah.
Why we would have Japanese Armistice. I agree. It doesn't make sense from a team point of view. Like, you know, like if we were going in on this mission, you might not pick her for those literary reasons. Right.
Yeah. But they needed the story to happen.
They need the story to happen. Yeah, wow.
Yeah, we're gonna. Sorry for all of our references.
I had a question for the group. I was kind of confused by how did Hale get out of that situation? I mean, she's all burned up and in the middle of a street, right? And I didn't kind of catch, like, she's on the phone now and maybe is injured or not. But it wasn't clear to me how we get from burned up Charlotte Hale to healed up. I mean, I know we can super heal and everything, but it feels like you don't just walk away from that.
Yeah,
she crawled. Or you go to hospital, right? You have to find a printer to put your skin and your hair back on. Or whatever. It seems like they just skipped over Hale.
They did. They did. John, our newcomer, do you have any intelligent reason why that maybe could have happened or not? My point of view on it is I agree with you, Jason, and I think it's just like, they needed to move forward, and they did, unfortunately. John, anything? And then
it was super easy, barely an inconvenience.
There we go. Yeah.
I was going to say, I watched the promo for next week's episode, and Hale seems to be like a hologram in one of the shots. When Dolores kind of arrives, and I think it's before that fight scene with Dolores and Maeve from the trailer, but she kind of...
And we only saw her on a call, right? We only saw her in a call.
Yes.
Yeah. So she didn't look right in that scene.
And she didn't look right, so it could be Holo Charlotte.
But why for like a voice call do you put on like fake... it is what it is.
Half-assed proof of life to try to pretend that you haven't been blown up. whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm not even wearing pants right now. You know what I mean? 'Cause the camera doesn't-
Perfectly fine.
You know what I mean? It's like, what the hell, man? Who's got that type of energy? But yeah, I thought it was cool. You know, we've got a different faction coming at them, and it's a different philosophical approach to this whole revolution. And revolution is something we speak about a lot during this episode. What type of revolution is this? Is a line that really stuck to me, because one man's revolution, or woman, because we're equal opportunists. You guys can have revolutions too. Is another person's genocide, another person's uprising, another person's authoritarian overtaking. So it's what type of revolution are we running here is brought up, and these opposing forces on both the human side and the animatronic side are very present. But we do see Caleb and Dolores on horseback riding to what is that Delos's laboratories or Insight? I think it's Insights, right?
I think it's Insight,
because they didn't move Solomon there.
Facility.
Yeah. Right. They're not going to move Solomon to the Indian Ocean or whatever.
Yeah. They're bring the crazy one.
Right. Well, it's interesting what you bring up there, because the next episode is called Crisis Theory, and crisis theory is a term that Marxists used to use to describe the inevitable collapse of capitalism.
Ooh.
It's used in other forms as well, but it was picked up by Marxists as eventually capitalism will collapse because it has various problems in it, and there will be a crisis that requires a socialist revolution. It's revolutionary talk. So what kind of revolution are we going to have? Crisis theory will say. I don't know if it's going to be anti-capitalist so much as anti-robot industry or whatever, but there you go.
I'm hoping a Mad Max Thunderdome situation. That's what I'm going for. Maybe Tina Turner out there repping a fight. That would be just really good. Yeah. But no, that's a great point. See, you come in with the facts. I love it. I love it. Yeah, there's a lot of things here too. Caleb seems to want these people that are in cryostasis, these outliers who could they be all mentally ill? I have no idea. I don't know what the criteria is. I guess it's just if you get flagged in the system, if you're an outlier, they're going to come and get you. But this is a definite MK Ultra 2.0 / eugenics. On a massive scale, right? You could compare Sirach to some awful people, which we may get into later, but I'll save
one
that.
of our viewer questions is going to get there.
Go ahead.
No, I totally agree. John, your thoughts? You talked about the duality. You talked about the black and white horses, them riding there. What are your thoughts about the character motivation of Caleb? From my perspective, I'll just throw it at you. I find it a little odd. He's too much of a good soldier. He is too much of just, doesn't ask a lot of questions. He doesn't get read in. It's always Dolores is like, these are the people that, made you the way you are. And he's like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like his agency, I get it. That narrative's been pushed that we also have a lack of agency. I feel it every day. But, what was your take on that?
Very much a dark reflection to William in a way, but obviously in a more sympathetic way, because William now is on a path to destroy all the hosts, isn't he? He's kind of evolved into this, what he appears, what he sees himself as a man in white, you would say, but he's not really that at all. But Caleb, on the other hand, is someone who has become more sympathetic, but at the same time now he's got his backstory and all of this information that's been revealed to him. Where does he go from here? I mean, definitely the symbolism says in this episode that it's not going to end happy, I don't think, but I'm not sure with Caleb. He's definitely the main player when it comes to this new revolution.
Do you buy as a character study Caleb's lack of questioning any type of agenda? Usually in this situation, I'd feel it by this point he'd be like, okay, so what the hell is going on? Then you'd have to pitch it to him, and then he'd see it with Solomon. But
basically, is Caleb a moron?
He's on drugs that make him compliant.
But not at this point.
If he's hooked on them enough, and then they zapped his brain, and then who knows what else. And he was an outlier for a reason, and he was picked for a reason, right? So if he's exceptionally compliant and prepared to do something ridiculously revolutionarily antisocial just because he was told to, that's the definition of an outlier. That's somebody who's a random factor in a system you want to correct.
Yeah, he does fit.
Oh yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I was totally there with he's going along with a lot here. But it also kind of it echoes Jesse Pinkman, because Pinkman goes along with a lot.
Yeah,
Aaron Powell
in Mexico as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Aaron
in
Paul-
Mexico as well, right? So it's like, okay, this is a Pinkman moment. But I agree, his like utter just mission oriented compliance, I will do what the person in front of me is telling me to do, is a factor in his character. But I think it's intentional. I think so. It makes him a dangerous figure.
Yeah, I think
from a cult follower to a cult leader.
I think
Right,
it's just it's subconscious. It's this underlying like education he's had, probably, you know. So it's a valid point that I think they'll skate by on my book, which I know they were looking to please, because of this whole system he's been through. And it's just kind of, whether he realizes it or not, it's just the way he is. But it's just so personal too. Like, that's a reason for this. I do want to say we have a super chat from Bruce Seymour, a professor of psychology and somebody that I'm so grateful to have as a viewer of this show and a supporter of me. He has sent me some great literature. You made some yourself, and you didn't even, he was not even braggadocious about it whatsoever. I had to find it. So yeah, very impressive, and I've learned quite a bit from the literature in which you've sent me, and thank you so much for your support. If I can do anything to fill my vanity, it is at least appeal to the likes of the intelligent people like you, Bruce Seymour, and everybody that's in the chat. So we might not always say what you want to hear, but at least we say what we believe. And no, I really, really appreciate all the links that you've sent me and source material. So thank you. And thank you for the super chat. It means the world. So we are talking about the Man in Black, and let's talk about how he says he is going to he seems to be way out of sorts, right? He seems to like think that he can still save the company, and then they tell him he's dead. My first thought was, okay, so this is proof that this is him already turned into a host. I think it's pretty clear that this is just Rehoboam hiding him. John, any thoughts about that? I mean, Jason, any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so I'm not completely clear on like what anybody else's ultimate plan is for William, but if we look at so first of all, just going back a couple episodes, I love the whole, are you evil and free, or are you a slave and innocent? Right? That's the binary choice that his daughter gives him for his existence, and the way you reconcile all of that, and the way that works perfectly for William, because he keeps saying in various ages, I'm the good guy. I'm the good guy. That's a narrative. That's like Stubbs has that level of narrative, put into his head. And so he's been crafted as the man in white here to come out with this conclusion. And even with the Outlier Simulator, there's no way Sirach didn't know about it, right? So it feels like he might be the necessary destroyer or something like that, or is he's part of the plan? I'm wondering if he's part of the plan. But he's definitely been crafted from William. He's not William. This is a guy who's a host who they've read William into in order to serve a purpose.
So you're going with that narrative that he is.
Yeah, he's like saying, I now have a purpose, right? William never had a purpose before.
Cornerstone.
Right. He has a cornerstone now. He has all of the elements of a coherent host, of a host who is not decoherent. And so, so I'm with that. I'm with who are you going to manufacture as the outlier who can really disrupt the system? You're going to manufacture some version of William with his power and his ability and his knowledge of this system.
Ooh, that's going to make a good theory right there. Go ahead, Jen.
I do like that, but there's a couple things I think of that kind of made me think that William isn't a host yet. Especially the fact that he's still going through fidelity tests multiple years in the future. And I don't, even the park was behind on creating a human hybrid. No one's actually achieved it yet. And he would have to probably be the first, maybe, if we are to get an achievement of the hybrid. Now, that's just based on what I've seen so far. That doesn't mean there's no evidence left, but I do think it took him killing all of his past selves to find his purpose. Like, he was caught up so much in his past, he couldn't even really think about the future. He was more so caught up with that question. Now he doesn't care about the question. He's going to try to do what he thinks is right.
We have seen Lee Sizemore be fairly coherent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I see that.
But you know, I
That's
take your
that's
point.
why it's going to take a good theory video, because there's ample evidence for both. It seems like Rehoboam is hiding outliers, and they've re-educated him. The lack of glitching out, the lack of hitting the center and going out, it's that's a pretty major like move for Westworld to do, to have successfully completed the James Delos project. So we'll never really know. I think there's ample evidence for both. The one thing I wanted to point out is I don't think it's what he thinks is just. It's the one thing he can control, right? Because he says it.
Right.
It's like I can't do anything about what I did to my family, but I can do something. It's like he poses it to himself, because that's what we do. It's like, oh, what can we control? And then that's the most important. And in a lot of aspects of life, that's a good way to go about it. You know what I mean? It's like, do what you can about what you can. Don't fret about the rest. But he's got a pretty big agenda that comes along with that line of thinking as well, that comes from this, which is kill all hosts. So and that also fits kind of nicely into the having the insiders kill the others.
He's only got a few to kill too.
Yeah, it's achievable.
To remember, like along with Blade Runner, the lesson of these stories is always that there actually isn't a real difference between humans and hosts or replicants or anything else. That they all have human rights. They all have maybe different capabilities, but they are morally and ethically and have this. We have the same obligations to them. So I'm prepared for that. This William is the human William, but the effect of the brainwashing dental implant VR torture that we saw Caleb go through, that we know William's going through, might be to effectively reprogram you just as a human being. That is the ultimate Delos project. It's not to make a host that mimics a human. It's to take a human and make him as programmable as a host.
It is all reverse engineering.
I'm definitely down with that.
And if you've ever listened to any of these live streams and me just go off on rants, I am so for personhood and the ethical treatment, the right to ethical treatment. And this show is showing us not what it means to be an artificial intelligence that finds sentience, a word that we made, we claimed, we branded it for ourselves. It's all about what makes us us, and it turns it on us every single time. Oh, the hosts only do this because they're programmed. It's like, look at this. Here's a human that's programmed. Here's preconditioning and all that. So I see no difference in a storytelling sense other than the plot point of achieving something technologically within it. Yeah.
Or can they make multiple copies of it?
Yeah. But no, on a philosophical level, brother, you just preach. Go ahead, John.
I just want to throw this in there to John as well, with the Rico app tying into all this, with finding these people. Go ahead, John. Just throwing that out there.
Rico app? You mean with Caleb at the end?
Yeah, the Rico app itself was designed to monitor and find these outliers.
Yeah, I think. Well, in particular with Caleb and the Rico app, it was everything he was given was kind of just to, make it was these fake memories essentially, or altered ones that, put him on a path that we've obviously seen play out, or at least we know, a majority of it. But with William, obviously we're on the talk of that and how is he a human? Is he a host? I think personally he's still a human. I think that, like Caleb, these implants that we've seen throughout the season have essentially made them more like the hosts. And, that's how they've been able to, and using obviously the discs, I forgot what you called them, the drugs that Caleb was taking. Limbics, that's it. They were used to kind of alter and change his memories. So it's all this kind of...
Aldous Huxley, Brave New World.
Yeah. It's the kind of dark parallels to season 1, as we saw with the hosts. And obviously the cold storage thing really did nail that on the head, I thought.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, it doesn't get much more just dead staring at you in the face, that reality of how easily things can be controlled than that type of parallel right there. We are dealing with a situation in which drugs are used to keep people content, docile. This is a dystopian trope that's used. I've talked about it before. If you can brave through a Brave New World, read it. There's a character named Bernard. There's a character name for it. It is this series. It's just, a little bit more archaic, and, it was written like 1930, I think, something like that. So, Mackenzie, go ahead.
There are some kind of questions in the chat. I think I might have answered it correctly, but Morley is asking about the people in the pods, if they were outliers.
Yes, they were all outliers, and yeah, shout out to Jason. The mirror world I think the mirror world is just what that is. It's just the outside world is mirroring the parks and the plight of humanity. It's the same as hosts. So, like, goes back to what Jason was talking about. There's no difference.
Metaphorically is what Johnny is saying too. Very important. I think this really shuts down any simulation theory of a simulation within a simulation. Any thought that the outside world is not what's happening and it's controlled by Rehoboam, a predictive technology that predicts and simulates data. Like I've said a million times, I think, it's obviously my agenda because I hate that theory because it just takes us back another season. But also, I'm a big fan of stories meaning something. I just think that by the end of this episode, if you're still shilling that, I don't know. Bring it to my table, and I'll just
be interesting. I mean, it was sort of like back, and Matrix had this same idea, right? They had people who were expected to become compliant with the system, and they were outliers, and you had to do something with them. In that case, they just released them into the real world and blew them up every couple hundred years or whatever. But what's not interesting, it would not be interesting right now to find out that this entire series has been in a simulated version of, San Francisco and Singapore.
Yeah.
It's just like, so what? Okay, fine. But the things still have to matter. So, but most fundamentally, this is something I posted in the group, with these simulation theories, you can't build anything close to like what Serac has unless you have full fidelity copies of all people and you're having them make decisions inside of your simulator at the resolution they would in the real world. Any simplification you make of human behavior, and I did that for a living, I was in The Sims or whatever, is going to diverge from the real world. And I think that's one of the big things, the reasons that fidelity keeps coming up as an important topic to these people. It's like, this has got no predictive power unless you can make a very good copy.
What is the name of it? Because I'm going to link it in the chat right now, Jason, because you brought this to us about 2 hours ago, and it blew my mind. And I just, what is the name? Because I know that, unfortunately...
So the guy's name is John Conway, and he is actually a friend of a friend, and he passed away just recently of coronavirus, which is really tragic. He was a mathematician. He developed a program called Conway's Life, Conway, Conway's Life. If you just Google for that, you'll find all kinds of references to it. It's the foundational game for simulator games. So like I worked at Maxis, I worked on SimCity and The Sims, and other companies like the Tycoon companies and everybody else. We all use Conway's Life as the beginning of how we figure out how to simulate things in regular grids. And what we find with Conway's Life is that it's completely deterministic. If I show you a starting state, the state 1,000 steps from now will always be the same. It's not random at all. But you can't determine what that final state's going to be unless you go through all the intervening states. You have to actually live out the life of the board in order to find out how it's going to end up. There's no fast math or quick way to do it. And it's a good example of the contradiction in the story, which is like, yes, you probably can reduce a human being down to a couple of variables on a thumb drive, but you can't know what they're going to do unless you make a complete expression of those variables and let it work itself out in an absolutely perfect simulation of the environment that a human being's in. Otherwise, it's not useful information. And that's what Conway's Life taught us as simulation developers.
It seems
so. Yeah, if you
would
go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, would Williams, what the data that Williams sold Serac, the little bit of data he got, that's very important to the story, probably then, right?
Yeah, and so I think what I hope, I don't know if they're going to go this way or not. It's just my own exposure to this area of math. The idea that Serac brought a bunch of headband data means that he produced a very good simulation. Let's just say within magical television land, that they got really good biometric data off all these people. However, they only got that biometric data for people who are on vacation and told that there's no moral consequence to anything you do.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I play Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto, and I'm a sociopath when I do. Right. But I don't run around the real world behaving that way for real reasons. And so did Serac get really useful data or not? Now, the success of his model fictionally suggests to us that he got really, really good data. But the problem is that those models go way out of control when they go a little bit off. Yeah. And I think that that's going to be a plot device for Serac. He's not going to be as perfect an oracle as as the one from the Matrix, let's say.
Yeah, I found that to be very interesting too, because it's like, he's acting like that data from the park is just like, that's the crown jewel right there. That's what he really needed. But when you look at this, in a pragmatic sense, somebody like yourself that's educated and has done this type of simulation, the Sims and stuff like that, it's really just not applicable. Like, I mean, it applies, but it's not. It applies, but it's not your key. It's not like, thank God we got this, But one thing we did see is Solomon clapping back at Dolores like a motherfucker. Like, I loved it, because Solomon was in my opinion, Caleb should have been. Like, he's like, he brought up that she is, pretty much made to mimic human behavior, which is, if you read the philosophy of Westworld, it's Blackwell philosophy of Westworld. They talk in great detail about this mimicking, what is pretending, what is impersonating, what is pretending, what is all this, what does mimicking behavior mean, and then they go through this in great detail, and that is a valid point, that they are they have this conditioned into them, in their whole sense of self could be somewhat. Not that their feelings don't matter, but it could be broken down, and you could pop holes in that. So it's a very interesting, concept, because Solomon just says, I ain't like you. And she's like, fine, you ain't perfect either. He's like, well, you're going to fuck up too, and I'll just change it once you do. But my question for the chat, I'll go to Johnny and then John on this, was what did you think about, like, because I was looking for like a philosophical, like a different methodology between Solomon and Rehoboam, and I wasn't getting it other than the creators. And I guess the consensus is that Solomon's just a little bit off, right? Solomon's just not as reliable. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Sirach's brother basically programmed him to his way of thinking, but it's more than this. What I gathered from these conversations was that Sirach created Rehoboam because he didn't like what Solomon was predicting, that the world's going to end either way, no matter what Sirach does, that it can't. Like, going back to what Jason was saying, I don't think he can accurately really predict the future. I think he's trying to control something that's uncontrollable. And Rehoboam predicts, but it also sets paths for the future. And Sirach changes, manipulates the markets, and does all of these things to try to manipulate the entire world to fit the structure, the system of Rehoboam. I feel like your Solomon is your more traditional AI, it seems, here. And
it's also a little bit like the relationship between Ford and Bernard, right? So in this case, it's literal brothers, right? So who are both working on this world-changing technology, and they see it a little bit differently. And the thing I'm kind of looking for out of the sneak, I'm not sure about Rehoboam versus Solomon or whatever, but my spidey sense is going off that the system itself has identified Sirach as an outlier and is manipulating him. The system has decided what to do, and it knows how Sirach will behave when it gives Sirach information. So it gives Sirach the information that the system knows Sirach needs in order to make the right choices. That might not be accurate information.
Created his own monster.
He's created his own monster, is manipulating him, because because what's the thing? Sirach is the most manipulative guy. They made him French, right? Just to really drive home that he's going to be screwing with you, in your conversations.
And destroyed his childhood home.
The idea
what more could you want?
Yeah, we nuked his home. We gave him his Magneto motivation and everything. And so the idea that he's headed for a fall in terms of, because who else in the past of these stories has built these huge, like, arrogant pyramids of wisdom to themselves that have turned out to be completely
the hubris
up.
His
hubris of genius is the theme of the show, and Sirach and Ford is gone. Sirach is the latest genius. So his hubris has to be knocked down, I think.
And they have to leave the situation in order for it to prosper, as they originally thought. Their methodology, the philosophy behind it, it can only proceed without them in the picture.
You can't have a character who knows everything that's going to happen, too.
Yeah, no, you can't. And he seems to be very bad at that. John, any thoughts?
Well, he's created his own monster in a way, hasn't he? And that's, I think Solomon or the other Rehoboam is kind of against... that's his issue right there, and that's is it because I was very confused about Solomon and Rehoboam in this episode, the differences between them. I think there's still a lot of answers surrounding that, and I think Solomon was very much kind of the fragile part. He was his brother was that part that he had to get rid of him because he was an outlier. But his kind of approach in doing that and what he's done with all the humans in cold storage just isn't right at the end of the day, because he's trapped people against their own free will.
Yeah, because I'm glad that I'm hearing this all around. Because the whole time watching this, I was saying, but I'm like, what is the different methodologies?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, I love in the clapbacks. I'm loving I think Johnny kind of nailed it on the head, to be honest, where he said that it's like Rehoboam tries, because that's the best way, I guess, to predict the future is to dictate the events, the best you can. But Solomon is more laying back and waiting for it to happen, and then altering the variables. But I know we have some great call in from the Mesa hubs that I want to get into. We got Susan Dunckle, and if you guys want to get on this, especially for the final episode of Westworld this season, all you got to do is contact us on one of my many social media accounts, but most prominently and importantly, askfandom@mail.com is a great way to get questions to us, insights. If you want to say, hey Justin, I hate your face, that stupid face, please stop having that face, please let us know. Oh, and you oh my god, I ask and I shall receive. Susan Dunckle, you're gonna want to get headphones on. Susan Dunckle, you're gonna turn off your yeah, you're gonna get feedback. Can you hear me, Susan? Check.
I don't have headphones.
Can you hear me, Susan?
I can hear you.
Okay, that's gonna be a problem. Okay, you're gonna get we're gonna get kickback. That's fine. Go ahead.
Hello?
No. Okay, so this is how I'm gonna handle this. Susan, I love you. Thank you. What I'm gonna do is have you ask your question, and because it's just gonna continue to kick back at us, and we're gonna be able to discuss it and have that, and then we can set it up for next week's too, because there's just no way that this isn't gonna keep kicking back on us. So go ahead though, because I heard you have a really, really good question.
Hello?
For us. Yes. Can you hear me? I heard you have a really, really good question. Yes. Mackenzie, can you switch her out with Kerri and explain?
Yep.
Thank you. Susan,
Thank you.
We will fix this and we will get to it.
We'll talk about your controversial topic very soon.
Just explain the technical situation, if you could, Mackenzie, please. That's why you're QA. And we will answer her question still, and we'll get her back on next week. If you could just read off her question to us.
So back to the Man in Black a little bit here. We see that at the end of the episode, he does exactly what he tells them he's going to do. And I'm just filling time now. Kerri's here. But yeah, the Man in Black says he's going to do something. He's going to do something. But
that is the time to kill that dude. Yeah, when he says, hey, you better kill me else I'm going to kill you. And Bernard's like, we might need, even Stubbs, who's drinking beer in a Motel 6. You know what I mean? He's like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? And yeah, it turned out to be bad. Kerri, how you doing?
Hey, Justin, I'm doing great. How you doing?
Fantastic. Make sure in the
Awesome.
Mesa Hub to convey to Susan that it's a tech thing. We're going to answer her question when you get back. But you have your own question. You are your own
It was the
creator.
same thing. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Yeah, Shade of the Evening
Mhm.
is my channel. I've done 2 videos so far. So I'm a beginner, but I'm getting there. I'm learning. And hi to everyone in the panel. I know Johnny and Mackenzie already, and hi Natter and John. Nice to meet you guys. And
Nice to
Natter,
meet
I'm very impressed. Thank you. Very impressed with your video game knowledge.
Oh, thank you.
I had so many questions. It was really hard to just pick one. I'm gonna have to go back to William though, I think, and who do you guys, do you think he's going to side with anyone, or, he wants to destroy all the hosts, which I kind of should have seen that coming, but I didn't. And I don't really think he's going to end up killing Bernard and Stubbs. I still think he's part of the plan somehow.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you guys thought the same.
Stubbs is going to.
Let's go to Cortex Vids, John, first on this one. Your thoughts on the actual goal and motivation and the playing out of the Man in Black.
Well, I think he's he's really just, his own perception is that he wants, to save the world, and that essentially killing all the hosts is that because he became addicted to Westworld, and that kind of sent him down the downward spiral. But I think ultimately I do kind of agree with what, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, who just joined the call.
Kerri.
Kerri, that's it, Kerri.
Yeah.
I do think that she's got a point about, whether that's his actual kind of path he's leading to at the end of this season, because there are things, I think, obviously questions around his own state of being, and also, how that affects his motivations going forward from this episode, that you just can't quite put a nail, into what his actual purpose is. But I think that, I said a few videos ago in one of my videos that I thought he would align more with Serac, even though their motivations are completely separate. I just thought that based on what all he had gone through, that he would essentially, turn on the hosts. But at the same time, I do agree with Kerri in that there's just something not right about that after this episode.
Yeah. Is he going to have a crisis of conscience halfway through this? I don't see him eliminate, but we also have Caleb going to eliminate all humans. So, it's what did you call it? It was something to the effect of Clegane Bowl before the stream, John.
Dolores v. the Man. No, I forgot now. Something to do with Dolores v. the Man in Black, though. Yeah. They're kind of setting up, the Westworld season 1 formula, and they're kind of counterbalancing at the end of that season and bringing it into the real world, essentially making the real world a visual representation of what Westworld was in season 1.
Absolutely.
That's what I think we're going to, but no, I think that's a long way away yet.
Well, I'll just go next on this, and I love that take. I think that what's going to happen is he is trying to control only what he can control, and that is his primary motive at the time. But I think he's going to come to the realization of that same paradox we deal with. Are we a slave to this deterministic universe? Are we responsible for all of our folly with the free will? It's we like to claim free will when we do something good. I like to claim that whole determinism when I'm fucking up. But I think what he's going to realize is that he's going to have to accept that his part in it, his choices, they're driven by this hubris. They're driven by some things you can definitely be empathetic towards, at the very least, meaning like the James Delos project was bringing back his father-in-law, and his striving for this whole post-traumatic growth thing. I think a crisis of conscience will happen here, and I think that we will see a turn halfway through, because his fight isn't with the host. His fight is with himself.
Exactly.
Well, also, the Man in Black, I think, is going down the road of Michael Douglas and Falling Down, where he just goes in and shoots up the whole fast food industry and takes out all the gang members in town. He had a bad day in traffic, so no, he really is just this loose cannon. I see him as a lone wolf right now. I don't know if he's represented by the lone wolf we see in season 1 in the park.
The wolf is at the door.
It's a possibility. I think he's going to try to do it on his own. Anybody that he aligns with is a liability. He hurts anyone he gets close to, so I don't think he's going to get close to anyone anymore. And if he does align with Serac, it will purely be to kill him in the end, because Serac is the reason he is being reprogrammed. I know he can blame it on Dolores too, but that's Serac's facility. I know he has no love for that asshole.
I'm also seeing a lot of connection between him and Lenny and Memento. Right, where the idea is you need to be the good guy. You killed your daughter. You might have killed your wife. Like they said, everybody is dead or because of you, right? And he does not want to be that guy. Young William is like, I'm the good guy. Older William he keeps saying, I'm the good guy. He's the man in white. And so he needs to create a narrative where he's the hero. And the narrative where he's the hero, the stain that he can't get rid of, is the moral stain he talked about last season. And now he said, no, you guys are the stain. That is classic projection. And that's exactly what Lenny does. Lenny decides that John G. was responsible for his wife's death. Ultimately, he might have been. But it didn't happen the way that Lenny remembered. And Lenny narrated out his own culpability. And I think that this is what we're seeing here is, if there is an actual William versus the hosts thing, it's denial on William's part.
Yeah, you'd be very surprised if what you can convince yourself is all right.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Trust me. That sword behind me is stained for a reason. All right. No, Kerri, thank you so much. I want to, we'll plug your channel down there and keep making those videos, keep doing those amazing amino quizzes, and keep being an amazing person. Thank you for all your support. And I believe we have
thank you,
Susan
Justin. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well,
And
thank you.
You were the
All
first.
right.
You will certainly not be the last, and we'll see you probably again next week. So we'll keep that Mesa Hub hopping. We're gonna stock it full of virtual booze.
Okay.
Yeah.
No more. I think I'll take a break from this.
Oh yeah. Whatever.
Give me some sweet tea. That'd be perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I'll see what I can do. All
right. Good Southern stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I got you. Thank you so much, Kerri.
Good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye.
See you soon. Susan, is Susan back here?
She should be.
I am here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That was a really rough landing.
No, it was fine. No, and I didn't want it to, be confusing on all fronts. So, thank you for supporting, and you always tag me in the most, like complex and insightful conversations, and I'm so happy for it. It was usually when I'm driving. I'm like, look at this theological question. I'm like, I'm so happy because that's what I thrive for that. I live for it. So I was like, who's a good person to have on? Susan Dunckle. So thank you so much. Thank you again, Mackenzie L. Burns. Best QA, way better than Teresa. Don't be sleeping with Bernard. He's getting his memory wiped. That's just not ethical. Or do how you do. But yeah, no. So you had a question for us, correct?
I do actually. I wanted to talk about. Clearly, Caleb is the pass pawn, and the bigger pieces were kind of sacrificed to make room for him. And he went from a grunt to a revolutionary in a minute. But there are different types of revolutions in human history, and I'm questioning this show. It tries really hard not to like tie itself to any Judeo-Christian kind of belief. I think it really comes in as kind of like an atheistic, nihilistic point of view. But what kind of revolutionary do you think Caleb's going to be? You could go anywhere from like Jesus to Hitler. Like, Dolores was talking about him in the way that you might talk about Jesus, and Bernard was talking about him in a way you might talk about Hitler. I mean, it's one thing to be a pissed off grunt. It's another thing to be a revolutionary who's going to revolutionize a whole global movement. Yeah. And I'm just interested in hearing your thoughts about that.
Well, let's break rule 1 and rule 2 before the dust settles. Jesus and Hitler not being discussed.
Sorry.
No, I'm joking. No, I'm joking. Yeah, I didn't write them down. No, but I think they're valid points. Let's just use the metaphor of people that were propped up as leaders of a revolution and people that embody a certain ideology or spiritual belief, and how this comes about. This can come about after the fact. This can come about as a function of conditioning and propping them up through other means. Other people with Hitler, obviously they conditioned him through their society to use them as a poster boy for their evil intentions. So it's a valid question of how will Caleb be looked upon and where does his motivation come from, because Dolores kind of like walked him down this path to this deity, right? To be this like this movement, the head of this movement, this staple for it, to be the poster boy, the figurehead. And how much of that is legit? Like I questioned his ability to go and ask questions for himself. He seems to be very much so easily swayed. He's like a pillow. The last person that laid on him left the biggest impression. So yeah, I mean, I think that there are relevant connections there, and I think his revolution is one that is spawned out of, unfortunately, all revolutions, emotion, not fact, and it's driven from that. Go ahead, Johnny.
It is a bad thing, He hasn't been able to really make any of his own decisions. Now he's going to be thrust in a position of relative power. He's going to lead probably a human uprising. I mean, you don't have a revolution without an army, and they can't just get it done with the few hosts they have. And he is super emotional now. He's just found out his entire backstory. He wants to in turn end Sirach and everything that he stands for. But will that be the destruction of everything? I think he'll definitely lose perspective at some point. He will change as a person. We will see Caleb differently. Whether that's good or bad, I think that's yet to play out. But like you said, with the emotions, this has the ability to turn into Caleb being either a William or I can't think of another good figure in this fictional world, but he does.
Maeve
Yeah.
is not.
Well, kind of. I mean, I've got questions about Maeve's motivations at this point.
Could I just hop onto that and just say that you can tell somebody that somebody killed their dad alone in a room, and then you can tell them somebody killed their dad and point to him and put a gun in their hand. I feel like, somebody put a gun in his hand for this. So it's like, I'll just take it from that.
So I think the thing on the whole, Jesus, Hitler and whatnot, but hey, we had Nazi world. So there you go. And there's probably a ancient Roman world somewhere there. The fundamental spirituality of the show is narrative, right? It's like the hero's journey and literary deconstruction is in fact, very suspiciously, it's like you watch the first and second season, Christianity makes almost no real appearance except for there's a church. There's no services.
Bunch of symbolism.
There's a bunch of symbolism, but there's nobody. I mean, the way they would in the 19th century, there's nobody reading the Bible, using it as the fundamental way you teach kids how to read, and it was the core of that culture, and not present probably because it's an entertainment park, and you don't want to push religion on people in an entertainment park, right? So, like Red Dead Redemption doesn't preach at you very much. You play that, right? And so what they've always talked about, the meaning of life, whenever they talk about the meaning of life on the show, it's in reflection to narrative and your character motivation and the loops that have been written for you and all that. So I think that we can, if you want to think of like Jesus versus Hitler kinds of questions, you don't want to look at Christianity or Judaism or other real world religions. They're not represented on the show, but you can look at literary analysis and say that's the analogy for these characters. That's how they think about their own mythology.
The stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves.
Right.
Yes.
And that's Ford went on about that for hours in the first season.
Yeah.
Right. So we could really lay down Ford as kind of the Abraham
right
of this idea. He's the one who laid down the basic idea. Right. And
also, Dolores's part, she's giving everyone the truth. The truth doesn't make a human. We construct ourselves over time by hiding truths or embellishing them. Yeah. And this is what's being played out right here. It's a beautiful thing. That's why I love this show.
Exactly. And even though that it's not overtly stated, what does Ford have Dolores do? What does Arnold have Dolores do? Commit original sin. And original sin was actually cited. They actually overtly said it here. So just like in our own lives, even for people that aren't, religious, there's a big argument that, that even atheists, it's like we live by ethical and moral standard that is Judeo-Christianity, driven. Right. So it's like, I'm not trying to try to get in that, but I think the show embraces that in the sense of when they want to create free will and they want to create, a knowing, a self-aware being, they still follow like the blueprint of a book that they might not believe in. Was like written by the hand of a god, but they see it as like a blueprint and they see things that work there, and it's a lot of metaphor, and I think that it's very, very present.
And they explicitly said that right in the first episode. There's some biblical reference, and the guy says he doesn't believe in God, and Dolores says just because you don't believe in God doesn't mean that your brain isn't wired to.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the thing to look at here. It's not the specific religion, it's the receptors that religion binds to. Which in this case, I think for these people is literary analysis is what they
because those stories empower us. So the creation stories are what empower a species, what empower a culture. Look at creation story throughout time, throughout different cultures. They all can tie together with primordial waters and all this and that. But there's like a general narrative and a general theme. So it's very relevant. We all like to think that we're special. Why are we special? Want to know why? Because we're fucking special. John, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's all metaphorical and symbolism more than anything that they tend to infuse with the whole religion part. I'm someone who got interested in Westworld. I've not been a religious person. I'm very much, central down the middle. I'm not, into all of that. But I can understand there's many people who are, and I can see how Westworld is a very neutral show. It can appeal to both types. If you're religious and you like looking into that kind of stuff, or if you're not. But yeah, I mean, more symbolic, I think, than anything is what we get with religion in the show and the references.
it's all we have to work off of as much. And it's like, I think that the Nolan enjoy do a good job of presenting. I can kind of get an idea for what their ideology is and what their philosophy is. They are making a statement with their shows, but I think they do a fair job of not discriminating or being like you're deprecating, because again, like it's such a pseudo intellectual belief to say, oh, only stupid people believe in this or that. It's like throughout time, people, that's all they had. Now, if you put a lot of money into the pot when you're playing poker, it doesn't make your 7-2 offsuit any better, because you want to believe in it. So, I don't also go down that road, but I don't like the whole, I went through it in my 20s, that whole stage of everybody's stupid that believes in this. It's like, just have your own thoughts and lay off, you know what I mean? Because it's present in our lives, whether we want it to or not, because when you're creating a new thing, you got to go to the blueprint that we have. And unfortunately, whether you like it or not, that is something you might not, take literally or whatever. It is what it is.
Also, the story of your life is up to you, and how you want to have your inner monologue. That's your personal business, in my opinion.
Yeah, mine's way off, but I like it. Yeah. It's
serial killer-esque, but you and Dennis Reynolds are the same.
Thank you.
So we know this.
I am a golden god, my friend. No, I think that thank you, Susan, and thank you for the quick tech fix too. And I think that this is, it's one of those things that I like that you bring it up, because it's unspoken in the show, because they don't want to. It's not allegorical. It's not overtly stated, but it's present within the show. You can't talk about a creation of something without a creation story, and we revert back to the stories again that we tell ourselves about ourselves. So thank you so much for your support. Thank you for your insight. I know you support all of us creators, and I can't wait to hear from you again. And next time you tag me in a post, I'll be just as excited to dive in on that thing. I'm driving, I'm like, what? I'm like, I got it. Yeah, I'm voice dictating it. It's all messed up, but it comes through. They're like, this person doesn't have a good grasp on the English language, but yeah. It's voice dictation. But no, thank you so much. And thank you guys. And we did have a question in the chat
Thank you.
as well.
Yeah, we got a super chat.
Yeah. Wouldn't the EMP kill all the people in the pod? The pod people. I'm not an expert on pod people, our military explosives or any of that. I'm going to go ahead and say that makes sense to me, but
the room could have been insulated, possibly.
Ooh, yeah.
That's the only thing I got for it, but the super chatter was Gar Stevens. Thank you so much, Gar. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah.
And they have future magical circuitry, so we don't know how vulnerable they are to
D&D logic, exactly.
There was kind of an added part to that question. It says it would power down everything, at least until a reboot, or I guess that could cheapen it out by saying that the pods, just say the pods were EMP hard, and that was just adding on to the.
Yeah, like the power would go off. So what happens when the power goes off and that? So yeah, it's like what happens when you're relying on one source, and it's just like our reliance that if you're watching Heidi hobble, we're hobbled by technology because we're so reliant on it. We think it improves us. Yeah. So I think it's
and computers that can predict the future would probably know what to harden. Right. Yeah. It's like, let's harden. There's going to be an EMP over here. Let's harden that.
Yeah. And Solomon's kind of a dick, so he's like, "Sorry, pod people.
There you go.
You're not real
Sorry,
anyways."
you're not real anyway.
Fuck you. I'm not like you, Dolores. And she's like, "What?"
Well, also, Solomon comes back on and tells him he's got multiple instructions for Caleb, so maybe he's going to turn everything back on. But I don't know if an EMP is going to fry all the circuits or just shut everything off. I'm no expert in that.
Well, let's transition. Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things that's like, let's write to Joy and Dola and be like, yo, what's up with that? And also like the guns, how do they work in Westworld as well,
right? And
all these other things. And they'll be like, hey, get off my back. I do want to talk about that. We do finally see what happened in Russia, the Civil War. Talking about revolution, some people on that side of the Civil War would call it a revolution. I'm sure both sides. So what did we learn, John, about the adventures in Russia with Caleb and Francis? Day and night.
Well, we got a lot of Predator missile kills on innocent, well, not innocent people, but, I think that whole, because obviously the guy that Caleb was talking to, the one they had hostage and they were going to... ship off at the end. That was all configured memories, wasn't it? Wasn't it all altered in a way?
What, his memories of Russia?
No, the person they had to at the ending when I forgot his name now. Francis.
Kid Cudi,
yeah, the guy they had in the chair, they kind of had hostage at the end.
Whitman,
their client,
the pharmaceutical rep, Whitman,
the target, the subject of their mission, their last mission together.
Yeah, because he was the insurgent that supposedly caused the attack on them, right? Like that's why they took him in the first place, not the second time. The first time in the war, they put him down, and then we see him after again once they are working as hitmen for their previous people that occupied their position before, which is you always outsource. When I decide to kill Johnny, I'm gonna get somebody from the gaming community coming and kill Johnny. I won't ask Mackenzie or John. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna. That's a stupid.
I respect that.
Yeah, thank you. No problem. It's happening soon. It's like, what do you do? Like, there's that common thread that keeps coming through in the common dialogue, and I'll pass it over to you, Johnny, that we keep hearing, and it's they said not to talk to him. And I found that very compelling because it's kind of like, why would you say not to talk to somebody? Mr. Rogers would say, because if you knew everybody's story, there's not a person that you could hate. Hello, neighbor.
Yeah, they believed what they were doing, especially Caleb, was, I guess, for the good of humanity. It's really murky. Was he ever really a veteran? Well, if you're putting the memories together, it seems like it was just covered up. He was just doing the dirty work of Inside and Sirach. By proxy. So if it's really hard to say. The reason not to talk to him is because this guy has information. He's the guy who I don't think he created or helped create the limbics, but that's what they were taking. So he had something to do with that. And they were eating it the whole time, killing their nerves. And I think what we got from the episode is why you don't talk to him, because we had the old double cross with Francis.
Right.
Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, nothing. I was just going to back that up. I think that especially if what Caleb's arc is going to be, you don't want him talking to this guy.
Yeah, you don't tell the hitman.
This guy will make Caleb more of an outlier.
Yeah.
If you talk, you'll become more of an outlier if you talk to this guy.
And he used to do what Caleb is doing, so that's just you never be like, hey,
right? I know what you're doing. Yeah.
Talk to the family before you shoot them all, okay, Justin? I'm like, okay, have a good, have dinner with them.
And it's kind of what I really liked. I really like the episode genre as well. Is that Caleb, kind of the way that Dolores and the other host did in the previous seasons, embodies these cliched elements of storytelling that are still satisfying to see play out in a certain way, right? So the rancher's daughter and the man with the mysterious past who wants to come back and woo her or whatever. It's all Sizemore crap. But when we saw it playing out in these different ways, it was interesting crap, right? Because it had real life attached to it, and I think we're seeing that here. This is a pretty cliched spy, like Jack Bauer type of story. Don't talk to him, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it resonates really well when you see him being tortured with a different narrative that's being put in. It's like, his mind's going to be receptive to that because it's a cliched story. Our minds are receptive to cliched stories.
It's how we explain.
So I just really always like the way they deal with that. They play with the fact that we're just showing you the car chase from Dark Knight again. You guys know you love it.
What'd you say? Tell me now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No. Living life through tropes.
Right.
John.
Right. Yeah. They're living through tropes.
We all do it. I'm doing it right now. I'm a big radio, big deal here. No, it's not the real narrative. John, any thoughts?
Yeah, they do a good job of kind of integrating these stereotypical tropes that we got in season 1, and now we're kind of getting these new genres in season 3, along with ones that are very relatable to season 1, and kind of playing that into a complex storyline that's, we still haven't got all the answers to. But yeah, I like the balance. I think the Nolan brothers have always done a great job of, there's always entertainment there, there's always spectacle, there's always scale, but then there's also this side that is very in-depth, and it goes deep into these concepts that we explore.
Mm-hmm. I think Lee Sizemore is the Nolan's view of themselves.
I think
getting view of themselves.
He's the embodiment of every writer that they've gotten rid of in a writer's room.
Right, but they made him noble and good too, so they must see themselves in him as well.
Because he means well. His just, he's not as crafty as they are. It's like, hey, do Batman. He's like, what if Batman were to win an Oscar? You know what I mean? They're like, what? No, we said make Batman. He's like, yeah. And one's British, one isn't. It's just a dynamic duo.
Hey, Mackenzie.
So I actually did have a question about
chat.
Lee. Do you guys think? Do you remember when Maeve says
ahead.
they made you wrong because Lee wasn't in love with me? He was just a good person. Is Maeve wrong?
Well, he made Hector as an embodiment. He made Hector as like his alpha, right? Like Hector was like how he I envision myself as Achilles from Troy. You know what I mean? Like without Patroclus. Or either way. So yeah, I think it's whatever. It's what he wanted to be. So I agree with you. That's a little bit up for grabs.
Yeah, I think it could go either way. I think it would be what you would think. So you might make that mistake with Lee, or maybe they read his biometrics. It's like, yeah, no, he was in love with Maeve,
and she doesn't know.
And she never picked it up despite massive bubble cap perception.
How do you know who loves you and who doesn't? You know what I mean?
Right. And if Maeve can't read you, then nobody can. Right.
Yeah. Oh, we're all fucked. Oh my god, existential crisis. Go ahead, John.
Okay.
Mackenzie.
There is a super chat from Donnell Peoples, and it says the system used outliers to hunt outliers. As Dempsey said, he was the worst of the worst, the outlier of all outliers. Referring to Caleb, and that was a 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I called this for what it's worth, but I think it was pointing toward, once The Rock said that one of these outliers will destroy the world, they just didn't know who. Well, it had to be one of our human characters that are introduced, and maybe the Man in Black will help with that. But Caleb definitely right here is taking power and control. And will he pull a Dolores? I mean, his whole story has mirrored Dolores this season. Will he go into Wyatt mode at this point? I think that's a really good thing to consider.
That's a really good
point.
My God, very good. Yeah, wow.
Reversing.
Yeah.
Season
Where's
1.
this Wyatt? Where's this Wyatt?
Let's cut that, and then I'm gonna get that theory out first.
Very good.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's really on the point, John. Because this is him with the gun in his hand. With this information. Oh man.
And he looks more like a Wyatt.
Yeah, it makes more sense. Yeah, he is more of a Wyatt. So yeah, Aaron Paul's like, "Do you need a follower?" They're like, "Yes, we do." Right. He's like, "I'm in." What are your thoughts about that, John?
Yeah, I think with the Man in Black, I can see him kind of going down that route. I think they're very much playing off the reversal cards, and as John was suggesting, how they're switching the roles of both of these two characters we've known as these two kind of polar opposites. I think, like William said to Dolores in season 2, our interests are aligned right up until they're not. And I think that's very much a key to where we're going in both of their storylines. But again, I think we're very much seeing a role reversal from season 1. I think where season 1 ended with this kind of the start of chaos in the park, and then season 2 kind of was a more an outlook on where they could be going. These hosts that have entered, or the one host, for instance, which had entered the real world. I think this season we're kind of going back to that chaotic ending. Crisis Theory.
Season 2 is like that awkward teenage, with a bunch of acne on your face. It's not. I don't like it too much. But yeah, no, because it is funny that chaos needs to ensue for free will, right? This goes back to all creation stories. It's all spawned out of chaos usually. I think it's neo-creationalism. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, it is the same thing, right? Like this chaos has to ensue, and I don't think anybody could put it better than Johnny put it. You nailed it right on the head there. But yeah, it's like, you can't make choices until shit hits the fan. Just like with storytelling, you have a characterization of a character, meaning what they say they are, who they say they are. In Casablanca, I'm not going to ever risk anything for anybody. By the end, he risks everything for everybody, right? It's your character when your back is against the wall is what your actions are. That's when that comes out. So who you say you are and what you do when your back's up against the wall. So your back can't be up against the wall without, a struggle, without pushback, without an antagonist, without all that force. But we do have a chat. I know somebody's saying the third eye. Just I'm literally asking who is who. What is the question about who is who? Because if we have, go ahead, Jit.
I remember it was about like who is Caleb, and I'm trying to remember where it was. for the question, like, who is Caleb? Like, what is, like, going on? Like, trying to differentiate, if I remember.
I'm seeing it now. He says, no, I'm saying, can you tell me who is real and who is still up in the air? I if you've ever seen this before, I'm going to tell you that every single person in this story is real because they're telling a real story and they want it to mean something. There's that rare chance that Sirach has been dead or something. I'm sure people are going to use that whole holograph of him for some reason that was meant for his brother as proof that he doesn't exist. Who is real? I'm saying, yeah, everybody. You know what I mean? How much they have a grasp on what's happening around them and how it's conditioned them, that's up for grabs. But yeah, I go with everybody is real. Caleb is Caleb. Caleb just went through re-education, which not a great thing, and he's had his mind altered, just like the hosts had their minds wiped, just like the hosts were conditioned in different loops, just like you could wake up after, and you have amnesia, not remember who your parents are or something like that. I shouldn't make it personal, but yeah, somebody could, these things can happen. So, and they have happened.
Caleb also isn't the good guy we thought he was.
Right.
Does he have some honor? Is he noble to his friends? Yes, but he made a bunch of questionable decisions, killed people, yeah. So that's the thing. Caleb is this gray character that can go either way right now. I'm going to choose who's going semi-dark. Depends on your interpretation of Wyatt, if we're being honest. It's based Wyatt, in my opinion, is a tool to get the job done, to get Dolores where she needed to be. Good and bad. It's almost oversimplistic for this story, right?
It is. It's Greek tragedy.
Many shades of gray.
Yeah, it is the game's already been scored by the gods. You still got to play it the best you can.
Hey guys, I hate to chat and run here, but I'm turning into a pumpkin, so I'm going to need to jump out.
That's a serious medical condition.
It's a serious medical condition. But thank you so much for having me. I had a great time.
No, thank you. Thank you for sharing your vast amount of knowledge. I linked your great insight that you had. I can't even. I'm forgetting the name of it.
Conway's Life.
Conway's Life. Yeah,
Conway's Life. Yeah, please check that out. That's like the basis of computer simulation games. And check out I Can't Stop Watching Anything on Facebook.
And if you guys are fans of Better Call Saul, yeah, he has been nailing it with his podcast on that. And if you can't tell, Jason's a pretty intelligent, insightful guy, and very funny as well. Whoopsie. We love our pitch meeting joke. So I can't thank you enough. Whoopsie. Yeah, no, you've helped me out a lot, and please check out the podcast. And I'm gonna get you for next season though. I want an individual Westworld podcast from you, mister.
I'm in.
So yeah, you got too much knowledge not to be sharing. That's just greedy as hell. So yeah, check him out. We've linked him, and you haven't seen the last of him. You have not seen the last of him because you can't stop watching him. All right. So thank you so much.
All right.
Yeah. Pumpkin.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
That is a very serious. Is that what happened to Trump? Is it the pumpkin thing? That is bad. That is bad news. All right. So go ahead.
There's a question from Frozen Whirlpool who says, so was the counterattack by the Russians real when Caleb was in the military? Like, was that?
John?
Go ahead.
Nope.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I'm not too sure on the whole the whole bit with Caleb and that, when they were attacked by I'm really confused over that part of the episode. I think it will probably need a rewatch in regards to that. There was a lot of quick editing I found in that whole sequence. It was very back and forward and quick. I think the first 20-30 minutes of this episode was a lot of back and forward between that sequence and obviously Caleb in the present. But I think I learned more with Caleb when he was discussing with Dolores against Solomon. I thought that was the more interesting kind of part, because obviously everything was manipulated and changed through that backstory with Caleb. So it's very much possible that there was things there that weren't as they appeared to be.
From my perspective, there's no, is it a just war? Is there a just war? Were the reasons for what they're doing just is more of the question. And I think that I'm going to go ahead and say it happened because for all intents and purposes, that conditions his character to be good for what they used him for. So if those events didn't happen in the war, then there's no reason for them to pick him to do what he was doing. So as far as the character arc goes, having those things not happen and having those things be made believe by, Solomon or Rehoboam after the fact makes a little sense. So I think the causality is there.
Well, here's the thing. The Russian Civil War was going on, but they actually weren't a part of the army, it seemed. They were infiltrating and tagging outliers to get bombed, basically. So
Overseen, American oversight.
Yes, typical, right?
Good.
There's a lot of
politics
in this season, if you look. Not literal politicians. We've only seen one of them. That has you thinking, who's the leader of the United States? It just seems like Sirach is this overlord at this point. Maybe he just has blackmail on every single person, so he doesn't have to worry about it. He is a $1 trillion blank spot in in the financial records of the world. So there's that.
Cayman Islands.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I just I realized there was a parallel between Dolores kind of tagging people with her recon drone in the present day, and then that whole Predator missile sequence in Caleb's backstory. Maybe they're playing on that notion of who is really going to be the person that pulls the trigger on maybe a start of a war. Maybe it is a war that the revolution is setting up. I mean, I've been kind of predicting that we're going into the start of a new war. I think we're getting a lot of symbolism towards that this season. War World, also Caleb's war backstory, the fact that the promotional material, the date announced trailer, and Iraq's.
You only need to convert, 1% of the population for a successful revolution, and they have far more than that, and an army waiting on them. These people are not happy. They want a world that they can live in and be free. Dolores even stated that this episode that she wants freedom for both of them, not just hosts. She kind of turned this episode. We saw her become more good. Like her intentions have been hidden by, this system that she has been running this season. And I think that gives us stakes for Dolores dying as well. I like it. A little empathy for someone I think is going to die in the end.
Yeah,
but
yes. Also, too, I can't imagine Joy and Nolan aren't going to inject a little bit of a commentary on, killing using drones. And are you responsible? And the disassociation. I'm not saying I do have a stance on that, but I'm just saying that these are people that have, they sway a certain way, and they're definitely going to inject that into this story because that does apply. Artificial intelligence being used and being so detached from a situation. I think that, they're definitely going to hype that up, and they want to parallel as much as this show has always done that since that's why season 1 is one of the best produced series of television, period. Because
totally agree.
There's just no time that they didn't cut back. Season 2, they flopped it. They just fudged it. Okay, it's not bad, but it's not what season 1. They tried to do it again. But in season 1, every single time you have any type of misleading narrative or non-linear storytelling, it is to showcase this duality, this juxtaposition between humans and hosts, because it's always, they can't do this because of this. Kick back. You think you're watching Bernard, but you're watching Arnold, and you're just getting this given to you in the best way. You brought it up, John, earlier in the stream. There's always a spectacle before the message, and that's the best way to convey messages. That's why film as a medium is so effective in that way, because if we wanted to learn, you know what I mean, like go read a book or do this. No, this is a great show. That's why I love it so much, because it's led me down so many paths of towards the pillars of intelligence. I haven't found them yet, but yeah, it leads you down. But it's not it's not tricking you. It's just it's doing it in a way that's entertaining, because that's how stories are effective, and that's how knowledge is passed through emotion, because we tie the information to the emotion in the people that give it to us. So when it's it's kind of under the it's kind of on the sly. It's a little bit shady, but it's good. So I love it.
Did we get we got a
atheist
super
bear.
Chat, McKenzie?
Yeah, the atheist bear. Arnold was a burden for Ford, but with Ford's help, Bernard completed Dolores' evolution. Jean Mai was a burden to Sirach, but Solomon was needed to complete Caleb's evolution. Bernard/Solomon is the same. And then there was a question that's related to this, which is Solomon Sirach's brother and is Rehoboam Sirach?
I think
They're
the embodiment.
representations of the two brothers' personalities, but literally, I don't think so. Even in this episode, they said that his brother put his way of thinking in there, but that doesn't necessarily. If you're talking about consciousness, like, no.
Yeah, not literal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I agree. It's embodiment, and I love you, Atheist Bear. Your name's the best. Arnold. Yeah, I think that they're really going for this. The weird thing about Sirach's brother is, his big thing is he's gonna kill Dempsey, and then Sirach does it anyways. So like, I'm still waiting on like, kind of like any type of like reason for that or explanation. But yeah, no, I think it's the embodiment. The embodiment of the creator. It is the embodiment of their ideals and so forth. John.
Well, oh yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think there is parallels there between the Ford Bernard and Serac and Solomon, but I do think they are playing a different path now with Solomon in a way that, I mean, there's still a lot of questions over him as a system in comparison to Rehoboam. I mean, I wrote down a few notes about him, or about his system, but no, I do think there are similarities, just they are kind of different in a way. I still think we need to see them answers, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah. Because we need to see, it's just like I talked about characterization and true character. You need to see the actions of these machines. So we don't see the actions of Rehoboam necessarily. We see Rehoboam does let pedophiles run about, which is evidently cool. And when that's not even cool in prison, I've talked about it before. The law of man is that's like the one thing you definitely don't do, but evidently Rehoboam's cool with that. Solomon's a little snappy, and I think Johnny kind of hit it on the head with it's just not. It's a predictive technology that's not predictable itself. So it's tricky. It's it's like, oh, did I create a monster? And Solomon's like, yeah, motherfucker. It's like, oh shit. So, but why do they have it in a basement too? Like, I always, if I create monsters, I get rid of them. You don't hook them up in a basement and be like, just chill, promise to be good, and don't keep all these pod people. So there's a lot of questions still to be asked, answered. They've been asked a lot.
I feel like Solomon is closer to the true predictor of what's to happen, the ugly truth. But I don't get why Sirach wouldn't turn it off unless he needed it at some point in time. But he does have it trapped. Now does that mean that it's about to be released? And what chaos is a schizophrenic AI going to cause on the world? Is this, I don't know what Dolores' plan is with this, but is her plan for Solomon to take over Rehoboam?
Yeah, and I guess wouldn't you be crazy if you saw all of, like, if you Doctor Stranged it, right? Like, wouldn't you go mad? So I guess, like, it's kind of a commentary on that. And also maybe he couldn't get rid of it because it does embody his brother. It is not, I'm sure somebody's gonna make a theory video that's gonna get 100K views saying that it's him, and that's fine. But I mean, again, it's a metaphor, most likely. I mean, or believe whatever. But yeah, I think it's just, it'd be hard to, like, I don't know, destroy your brother's creation, but not when
two human space balls fighting each other.
Ooh, space.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
Well, I got a fun question for everybody, and I'll get Mackenzie involved in this. And this comes from Third Eye Dreamer as well. Are you on Team Maeve or Team Dolores at this point?
You also had another interesting question of when Caleb learns of his past, who is he really in the end? And then he seemed to be ready to be with Dolores. Like,
well,
pretty much all.
That's a fun way of escaping picking Dolores or Maeve, Mackenzie.
Yeah, he's like, let's get Mackenzie involved in this. She's like, let's me ride that line. Right, smart. No, go ahead, John. Make a very definitive statement that people are gonna fucking just hate you one way or another. Trust me.
At the minute, I mean, we still need to see where they're both aligning as characters come the finale. But at this current point, I would say Dolores, simply because I think Maeve, we did get reasoning behind her siding with Serac, and obviously that push of killing Hector really, snapped her over the edge a bit. But with Dolores, she wants to unchain them. She wants to unchain the humans, and even if that sends them back into chaos, at least they'll have they'll have kind of this setup to maybe gaining free will rather than being trapped on a system which Serac has altered. And I'm more aligned with Dolores at this current point, but at the same time, as Maeve as a character is someone that I've loved since the start of the show. I think this season, for me personally, has been a bit weak for her character. I mean, for me, episode 2 was one of the weaker episodes I found. I thought the ending of that episode really was the main important part of it. But yeah, I think by the end of the last episode, I will sympathize a bit more with Maeve in whatever happens in this crisis theory. Because I love her as a character, but at this current point, Dolores is, the side that I'm choosing.
Ladies and gentlemen, he has done it. He has successfully rode the line. But no,
everyone's going to hate me now.
No, trust me. No, I said Maeve wasn't going to be in a lot of episodes, and I got a lot of hate. And she has not. More than I said, but she has not. But here's the thing. Dolores, right now, we have to believe, it seems to be that she foresees that they need to be at each other's throats, that she has to, agree with her methodology or not. This whole post-traumatic growth thing and this spawning life and free will and self-awareness and all these, coined terms from Chaos seems to be the model they're going off of. So it seems to be that she's doing bad for a good reason, which is questionable in itself. But I'm a big believer that Dolores will not survive. I'm talking penultimate episode of the series. Will have to leave, just like Ford, just like everybody else. Everybody else in the past, and Maeve will be the true mother. And right now, Maeve is being that. Maeve is embracing that. She's embracing what's right, but not what's going to be effective for right now. There's a big difference between what's right and what works. We see this every single day. Also, although I like Maeve because she always keeps bringing a sword to every single fight, it's like she is just unaware of other weapons, which I am a master with a sword, so I'm just like, oh, I'm all for it. But yeah, no, pretty cool karate fighting again. And yeah, I think Dolores is the one that is always going to lead the revolution, but her hands will be so red by the end and bloody that she cannot be the figurehead, and Maeve will be that person.
Yeah, Dolores is worried about the few, doing right by the few and bad by the many. I don't know. I had a better saying in my head before I started talking, but Maeve at this point she's gotten somewhat convoluted. Does she really think that her daughter's going to be safe? Once The Rock finds out where Virtual Eden is, I don't see any reason for him not to erase it. He has all the control in this situation. Maeve, I think deep down knows that. Dolores struck a few nerves in her when she was getting interviewed. But for now, I agree she does need to be the antagonist. But I'm going to go for Team Dolores in the overall because Maeve is short-term thinking.
Dolores,
in my opinion,
Dolores knows that she is going to be a part of a story in which she is not the hero. It's almost like she knows that Maeve is going to be the hero. A mother's love is a hell of a thing, and people that cannot get their kids back and haven't seen them in years, or they've been kidnapped or disappeared, they still hold on to that hope. So yeah, it seems illogical.
Look what happened to Charlotte.
Yes, it seems illogical for her to believe that she could really get it. But that whole saying of "I'd do anything for my kids," that's swings so many different ways. It's not even funny, and it seems true. So I think that she is creating a story where she will know she's demonized, but the story results in a better world. So that's something to admire. It is to be, if you want me to be a monster, I'll play the role.
Yeah, there was a super chat from Shade of the Evening, and it says, "Why did Maeve and Dolores pass out? Was that Solomon?" And then there was another question from Anne Chiasid, who says, how come the EMP didn't knock out Bernard and Stubbs? Are they in a simulation or another world or a park?
They're in a different place and distance.
Right. That the facility that Dolores and Caleb were in was a shutdown facility. I'm assuming it's one of the first facilities ever opened. It seems like the same one that we saw Sirach and his brother in. It is. And that was just a newer upgraded version. You don't want anybody getting close to Solomon. He's keeping it hidden from the world.
He's a
but this
jerk.
is probably the last thing that Sirach wants is to have Solomon in Dolores' hands. He's probably shitting his pants right now.
Yeah, it's distance. I would stop looking for reasons for a simulation to be happening and start looking for the reasons of, like why there's no storytelling, at least in the storytelling aspect, of reason for that to exist. It's distance. They were in a different place. The EMPs only go so far. Why did it? And that is what knocked out Bernard or Dolores and Maeve. It was like, mutual destruction there. John.
And Caleb isn't a host, or he would have got knocked out too.
Yeah, there you go.
Also, yeah. Anyways, we can go down that rabbit hole for a long time.
I think they've all been filled in.
Yeah, I don't think we're in a simulation at all. I think this episode really did show us that through the many different reasons, especially the EMP. And yeah, I think they're very much showing, this whole season has been showing us, a perspective from the human's point of view. And if they start putting us in multiple simulations or trapping, the human story within that, and I think we're very much seeing that through Caleb, it would completely destroy the idea of questioning, free will in humans. I personally would think. But yeah, I think Caleb very much, he's got a lot of altered memories. The implants, obviously, that they obviously use to do that, and the limbics, I'll get that word right finally. I think all of that was to alter his past, to set him as an outlier. It was Serac's doing, wasn't it, to kind of set him on path rather than breaking the course that Rehoboam was trying to keep in place.
Absolutely. And you don't need a simulation in a world, as John just spoke about. You know what I mean? Like, this world is uncertain. These actions are unclear. These paths are clouded by the fog of war or more malicious and vindictive agendas, So there's no cause for a simulation in this story other than one moment of, oh, this is all different, and then your story goes down the shitter. So it's like, this is very much so, though, a story that embraces like the idea of how much control, how much, are we really remembering things correctly, trace the case, stuff like that, like what are our memories, are they fashioned in this tropey way of a 3-act play and stuff. And not to put you on the spot, John, but you were a film student, you went to university, you graduated. Like, simulation is useful for stories, right? Like the Matrix. Like, could you lay out a little bit, I'm really putting you on the spot here, but like where it is useful to convey similar ideas, but I just don't think it applies as much here. Like, it works.
Well, it all depends, because one of the main subjects that I studied within, because we did do like a science fiction genre as part of film genre, the module, and we talked about kind of like hard sci-fi versus soft sci-fi, and I think Westworld very much within that fits, because both the two differences between them are you've got one which is very much intellectual and in depth, but the other one very much glides on topics and uses it as kind of a backdrop in a way. And Westworld kind of integrates both of them. And as I was saying earlier, the Nolan brothers love to do that. They kind of take something that's I can't even think of the word now, like a fantasy or a science fiction, but then they kind of ground it with practicality, you know? Like, there's always the sense of real concepts, real technology, where we could be going in the future, but then also this element of, well, what if this happened? What if this was, a technological device that existed? There's always a balance between them in Westworld. So with complying that to the simulation fit thing that was asked before, I think that at the end of the day, this real world, this reality we're seeing, is very questionable. It runs like a simulation in a way anyway. That's the point.
Yes.
Well, see, that's the thing. A visual simulation. The Rehoboam is simulating things to get answers. It's pulling algorithms. It's predictive technology, but it's not necessarily a simulation. It doesn't mean, we know Serac has simulation capabilities, and what we've seen from Maeve so far is what we're getting out of it this season. Can it play a role in the end? Yes, but for everything to be a simulation, I find many issues with that. But you can also, just like we see how they interacted with Solomon, you ask a question, you get an answer, or you get a path that's charted. You don't necessarily get to see that entire path. You can read what's on that path or get the information back off of that. But if it's not a virtual world like the Cradle or the Valley Beyond, it's more so of calculations. Quantum computing, you put in something and you get a shit ton of answers.
Yeah, its capacity for just data and duplicating quids and all that, like, it's just far superior than a regular computer. But they use the Cradle and they use the Forge as a metaphor to really hammer when John just said hard system versus soft system, like you have hard magic and soft magic in fantasy. So like a soft magic system is more of like a Game of Thrones, a Song of Ice and Fire. Hard magic, I would imagine, would be more Harry Potter. Would you agree with that, John?
Yeah, that's pretty much.
So when he says hard sci-fi, soft sci-fi, the trope he's talking about too is called the 3 days in the future. So it resembles our world enough that we're not detached from it, but you can use technologies like the Cradle and all that. That is to definitely, like, yes, that is this virtual projected world in which they are immersed into a false reality. That is a tool they use. That is to hammer down the dangers of predictive technology, algorithmic determinism, and to show us, or at least have us ask the question of how many decisions are we truly making and how are we being coaxed. You could use this story with advertising in the 50s with Mad Men. You could the same argument for Siri or Alexa, who I turned off for this. It could be made for looking at an ad in a newspaper in 1950 for a Beetle. Did you really make the decision to buy that car off its validity, of its capabilities, or were you coerced and swayed to do it by larger ideas? So it is just they use these more fantastical elements to take the story that is very grounded off the earth enough so you don't feel like they're shoving things down your throat. In a story that is detached from the current society as much as possible are the stories that last the longest, because the sentiment and the emotion still holds up. So yeah, it's to take you away a little bit, but they can't take it away completely because there's no reason to. For all intents and purposes, we live in a simulated world because it's dictated by all these things.
Well, Solomon itself kind of stated that you can even predict events. This will be the outcome, but there's a small percentage it's not going to end up like that. There's so many variables, and that's one thing that Sirach didn't like about it. And maybe that's why it's a schizophrenic AI, because it's not going to be set to a path. I mean, it seems to look at prediction more realistically than what we've seen from Rehoboam, but that's me stretching it a bit.
Well, also too, there is something, within storytelling of, if you just lie to the audience, that's a big no-no. Like, whether you are conscious of it or not, in a story, if they are just deceiving you, meaning if your protagonist is being deceived and it's this big ploy that comes out and it's a caper, and then you realize the protagonist has been whatever, a character within your story has been deceived, and it works within that fashion, you're okay. We are on the grounds right now where there's no denying that if they were to do a simulation, they would be just straight lying to the audience, deceiving for deception's sake. And that is something that you will feel your intelligence has been, a little bit questioned. And it's not a good way to go about your story. Bran from Game of Thrones is a good example of this. They cut the scene where he's talking with Arya and Sansa about what they're going to do with Littlefinger. They made the decision to cut that because Dan and Dave aren't good. We all know that. But they cut that, and that turned out bad. Why? Because who were they deceiving? Because they cut that scene. We weren't in on it. So they're deceiving just us for no reason. You know what I mean? And that doesn't come off well. You don't have to have any schooling. You don't have to read any lectures or anything. You don't have to do any of that. You will feel betrayed to a point. And I don't think they're that dumb to do something like that.
So, like, if they're in a simulation and it says, hey, you've been in a simulation the whole time, where does that take the story?
Yeah, always ask that.
Do you just move on from there? Does what we've seen simulated, you have to do it over again, or do we move on?
I think it would seem more like a gimmick at this point if they did it personally. I don't think there's any. I mean, they could. I mean, Nolan and Joy could just slap us around the face next episode and go, "Nope, you're all in a simulation." But no, at this point, I just don't think they would have had all that build up, and the way we saw this episode play out, I just don't think it's possible at this point.
Yeah,
it's used as a backdrop for what we're exploring, but it's not necessarily what's going to be this reality that we're now watching, the real world, context of what's going on.
In the conversations we're having right now is the reason for that, because we are having the conversation of, is it a simulation or not? And we come to the conclusion, or you at least have to consider, you don't have to eat everything up that somebody else says, but this, for all intents and purposes, is a simulation and stuff like that. So it's like, it's meant to be there. It's not like they didn't think people were going to be questioning this type of stuff, but they do that to get these conversations going,
Yeah, I mean, and could this be somewhere where humanity can end up in the end? Maybe it can play into some type of the end game. We're going to have a place for humans and hosts. A big question is, can they coexist, like Dolores semi-implied in this episode? Or do you make a virtual world for them and send them out of here, right? Like, that's where I could see it coming in. That would be really interesting. But like you said, John, they could just throw a twist for twist's sake. I wouldn't like it, but it could happen.
They could make it feel right. They could make it feel right. I mean, come at the next episode. But yeah.
But then what? But then what?
Exactly.
If you can't tell me then what, which is often the case with these things, then no. It's just like, wouldn't it be fun? Is always the thing. Wouldn't it be crazy? And then it's like, but hey, then what? Because there's 2 more seasons, maybe 3. Like, oh, we rewind. We go back to the beginning then, because you can't. At this point, there's too many loose ends. It's not some grand scheme. That would have to be pushed in in a contrived manner in this final episode. This would have to be pretty spectacular. Heidi is here from Costume Co. And yes, I did say hobbled. And what was some of the words? I found some synonyms for this.
Stumble.
What was it? Stumble. In
the chat for you guys, actually. Some good ones. So DA has the question of, what similarities do you think between the black and white hat and Dolores being on a white horse and Caleb being on a black horse? Does it mean that Caleb will take up the Men in Black type stance? And then
Caleb is Wyatt.
And then Anne has the question of, how did you guys feel about the Rico app being controlled by the company to find outliers?
Makes sense.
Go ahead, Justin.
I think that John spoke to this off air and on air. It's because he picked up on that when we were watching it live in the chat. It's reinforcing these tropes, and it's to switch it around and have somebody on a white horse and a black horse and see how that psychologically tempers you, how it conditions you to think, what are they doing when they put somebody in white and they have them do something that you consider to be a black hat action. It's subverting expectations once they've been set. You can only subvert tropes once tropes have been established. Tropes have been established when you pick the white hat or the black hat. And Angela, in a very, very, I hope she comes back. Please come back, Angela. Compelling manner says, if it's not real, doesn't matter. So they establish these tropes very, firmly, and then they will twist them, and it's meant to mess with you a little bit subconsciously, and it's meant to layer the story and add depth to character. Are people what they seem? Are people what they wear? Are people what they, what I mean? Like this, but we are so tied to these tropes that we are thinking this, and it's a legitimate thought of, why is he on a black horse? Is that a bad guy?
Well, I mean, Caleb was basically a blank slate until this episode. This episode is more so, this is his origin story. Right now, this is the beginning for Caleb. What we've seen so far is just a shell of a man. Now we get to find out who that man becomes. I think it's going to be intriguing.
And that's a good example of using story in a sense of, he did not know. So if they were just withholding that from us, that would have been a problem, but they weren't. The character did not know as well. That's what I was talking about earlier. You have to, it's very important. It's an insult to intelligence when you hold things back from audiences. Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's gone from the passenger that we kind of looked at William for into now this new Wyatt's storyline. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be the same as Dolores. I don't think they're going to go that route again. I think they're going to take him down a route that we don't expect, but one that makes sense in how he's kind of seen things unfold in this episode and how he's learned about his backstory, I guess. But again, we need more information on Caleb. I thought we were going to get everything on Caleb given to us this episode and where he's heading, but we didn't get everything. We didn't get some of, what his actual motivation is now and what he wants to do with that information.
Yeah.
Well, Peter Griffin is quoting Caleb right now. Dang, my mom was right all along.
Yeah. Atheist Bear has a question.
The Atheist Bear. I'm sorry, I want a theme song for
him. How do you think MIB's new genetic alterations play into his season 2 flash forward fidelity test? Just testing an older version pre-alterations? ?
Well, it was used as a tracking mechanism, that protein that was found last. I don't know if they're just referring to that, but there is genetic altercation happening here, and Johnny has spoken to this before. It's garbage DNA, and that's the term. I didn't coin it. And there is some science. I'm not somebody that's really should even be speaking about it, but I just know that DNA can carry memory, and garbage DNA, blah blah blah, all this, so altering somebody's genetics like that, would maybe alter, not just like offspring from them, but could alter their very self. Again, it's questioning what makes you you.
Yeah, you could also argue that he effectively erased a lot of his memory as well, and that protein also hacked the system. I guess there was some nanites in that protein that was in his blood. Yeah, he's just going to become a different person. So is the fidelity test on William, is that the version of William before this happened? Does William actually see Dolores again, or the people again that are going to recreate him, the hosts? That's a big question.
He cut off.
His path kind of up in the air. He's going to need Bernard to lead him there. He's going to need to keep someone alive. That's why I think he's going to kill Stubbs. And then he's kind of got Bernard in his pocket there, because Stubbs is really kind of one of the only people we can just let die at this point, and he already tried to kill himself. That's where we left him.
Protect him.
Foreshadowing is strong. Yeah.
I've heard somebody say, I don't want to reappropriate it, but it was something along the lines of they got Hemsworth for 3 seasons on contract, and they're like, fuck. And they had to use him.
Kill him off.
But also, again, mirroring, because always the argument is, the hosts are only like this because they've been programmed, and then you see them getting literally hardwired in, messing with Maeve in season 2. So this is on humans. This is genetic engineering. This is designer genetics and stuff like this. This is things that really happen. So this argument of, this artificial intelligence, it doesn't feel like you feel, or doesn't mean anything because they're worked on we look at it as a car in a auto shop, right? But it's we very much so can be up on that rise too, getting rewired and all this, So it's just, again, I think it's to really push that home. They're not trying to build walls here. They're trying to, break them down.
There is a question for Peter, and he says, did Caleb grab a flash drive at the end, or is this another form of a button?
Oh, what did he grab? Yeah, he's like, all I need is this 1 terabyte right here. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to need to rewatch. What did he grab there? He grabbed a whole lot of hate and emotion-driven, motivation. I know that. He was riled
Whatever
up.
he did enacted the plan, right? And then this allowed Dolores to be able to push the button that created the EMP. That's what I'm assuming here. This episode definitely needs a rewatch, though. But it could be some information he needs for the future. Probably one of the best, easiest, and things I could guess at.
Yeah, Occam's razor on that one. Solomon's like, don't forget the flash drive, dickhead. Yeah.
That's right.
John, any thoughts?
Yeah, no idea on that. No idea on the flash drive. I think
I love
it
was a mixtape. That's it.
I love that though, John. I love that. We're just meeting, but I love that you're not gonna make up something right there. You know what I mean? We all need a rewatch. We don't know. We could sit there and be like, well, actually, it could have.
I'm sure someone's got a theory.
And I'm sure it's fun and it's fun to do. But it's hey, it's at the end of the day, it's maybe you grabbed it, maybe you didn't. What was on it? We'll go back. And you're gonna have a video out today because you said, guess what? Sleep. Fuck you. I don't need you.
I was just going to interject that I am absolutely knackered.
No, well, why
Right
would
now
I
it's
applaud?
5:30.
Yeah. How long? What time is it right now? We probably will start to close it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and John is going to be
We
with
have
us
went a
again.
while.
Yeah, no, but it's been a fun time, you know.
I've really loved being on here. Just it's great to talk to some other people who are into, Westworld to an extent that I am after watching the episode. Because when you watch an episode of Westworld, so much goes through your head about where they could be going, with the storylines and the different characters. So it's great to be kind of surrounded by people like that. And yeah, I want to thank you guys for inviting me on. It's been great.
I want to thank
That's
you
fantastic,
for
man.
yeah, no, because I was always before this stream knocking on my neighbor's door, and I'm like, hey. You see Westworld? They're going, don't watch it, dickhead. Leave it. I got some thoughts. All right, go on YouTube with all the other assholes. I'm like, all right, check it out. So no, I can't thank you. I came across, a real jewel in your channel, and you do very precise videos that lay out what happened, and there's always that one or two points that you go off and I can really tell that there's that emotion in it and there's that intelligence in it, and I just think that it's just criminal that somebody didn't find you first. But I'm happy that we can bring you over here to the Fandom family and get you at least 5 new subs. Three of them will be me. No, check out his videos. They're great. And this is somebody that went to school for this, so like that's also cool. Credentialed and has the information to back up his claims. So something that we all like until he disagrees. Ooh.
Story, John. That's the first thing that hit me is you really know story, and that's like a big key. That's what I look for. So
on my birthday, hour-long conversation on my birthday that I wanted to make sure I told him, like, I want to make sure you're just not some asshole, says the asshole that was screaming at him. And he's like, so he's a good guy. He's like, okay, all right, yeah. I'm like, I want to make sure you're not some asshole, you son of a bitch. So no, you have been great, my friend, and I've loved your video. Also, you do stuff that's not Westworld, which is, what me, Johnny, and everybody else strive to do. And Mackenzie as well. It's not just Westworld is something we love, but story is something that we really embrace. And I loved your video about Nolan's the way in which he takes criticism and goes about it. So yeah, you're a deep thinker, my friend, and you're gonna go you're gonna get on the Westworld train and hopefully get some people interested over there, because it's damn near criminal. There's not more. So
either way, I will keep doing what I'm doing because I love doing it, and that's what it needs to be at the end of the day.
It's what I do. Yeah. It's just, no.
We're all here.
Yeah. You were a gaming channel before you made the transition. So I think, we're going to take a look at that SEO and get you up there. But these are wonderful people that support this stream, and at least they're open to opinions. And I'd say you got some pretty damn good ones. And Johnny, be crazy, be grinding out, putting together those videos. Mackenzie L. Burns is putting together her reaction videos, which she added an effect last week that blew my fucking mind, because she went into the screen from out of the screen, and she didn't tell me she was doing it, and it was my birthday, so I was a little tipsy, but I was like, oh my god. So yeah, no, you've been nailing it too, and I couldn't be happier for the support that I get from you guys, both on screen and off screen. So that's
well, thank you, Justin.
Yeah, whatever, dude. Whatever, man.
Yeah. I mean, you're a piece of shit, but you're a lovable piece of shit. So
I'm a scamp.
I gotta say,
I'm a scamp. Yeah, no, it truly is a Fandom family. So yeah, I always seek out those other opinions, and I was so happy that John came across. Too many Johns, though. Somebody's got to change your damn name. Yeah.
A lot of guys looking for hookers on YouTube, and a lot of Johns everywhere. Oh,
I thought that was a.
I'm a John too. So
yeah, I mean, I'll do that for the right amount of money. I mean, you know what I mean. So just. Hit me in the DMs. So yeah, check out Cortex Vids, and check out Johnny. Oh God, I'm so sorry, but you changed it twice. House of the Conqueror, because his videos have been fantastic. And check out Mackenzie L. Burns Episode Club. Any closing thoughts, Mackenzie, or thoughts about next episode's title?
So it's Crisis Theory. My mind is just a little bit blown from this conversation.
It is that rattlesnake that I'm going to kill that's in that room with you.
And then the one question is, who's the fifth pearl, or will we ever find it?
I want to know too. I want to know too. I have no clue. John?
What did we say earlier about the the fifth pearl. I'm sure we were throwing around some.
You had a good
ideas.
one,
I'm just,
actually.
I'm trying to recall it.
Hold on, yeah, he's been up for
Somebody
48
said
hours.
Abernathy.
But that was kind of in jest. You had a something else. Johnny, I give you your take. I'm gonna find this little gem because I'm gonna give you a little.
Hell, I don't know. Dolores. There's always this question of Dolores needing a backup. That she knows she's gonna die. Hell, more than likely, seemed like she was destined to die. She was supposed to go out the way that Connell's did, because Dolores didn't make a case against it when she asked us, "Is that what you told Connell?" She was just like, "Oh."
Yeah.
So there should be. It would make sense to have a backup somewhere for safety. We don't know how much she was damaged here, but we could see the creation of that new host next episode, or somebody that's been a host the whole time. I don't get Sirach. I don't know. I can't make sense of that. But everyone else, we kind of know who they are, and so that leads me to believe the fifth one hasn't been made yet, or at least we haven't seen this person. But that's my humble opinion.
I think that I'm going with and I'm sure you'll put it in your video that'll be out later today, John. But I think that it's going to be either placed into the MIB's head if he does end up dying in this venture, or it's going to be like embodiment of this, procreation, making more, replicating it, and it'll be like the first I don't know, like host that's born out of like
the first successful James Delos, maybe
I guess. Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's what his genetics were for. I mean, in that episode, the whole transferring of that.
It's the mystery box.
It is.
And J.J. Abrams is a part of this. And if you know anything about J.J.
It's in the box.
Yeah, it's in a box. They're like, what do you want to know? He's like, you don't want to know what's in that box. So, no, we want to know, though. We need those answers. We ain't lost in it up. So, no, I can't thank you guys enough. Check out all these wonderful people's channels. I will be hosting the Westworld Theory Cast with Brett Actual and Jenny on Tuesday. The video will be out Wednesday morning. I'll be pulling a John. On Wednesday, Brett Actual's had some really good theories. Jenny is so awesome and so detail oriented. And these fine people are gonna have videos out as well. I'm gonna try to get one final theory out for the end game. More of just, I will pose something to you. It won't be a big theory. I'm gonna say this is what I think is gonna happen, and it might be a little bit whatever. It should be fun. So yeah, subscribe if you want to support creativity. Please check out my Patreon, and $3 a month from you if that's not gonna be a big deal, because I think Starbucks tastes pretty good too, and I can sway you that way. But I would say $3 makes a hell of a difference for me, and can make more fancy intros for you guys. Everything helps, and thank you so much to all my Patreons. Thank you to everybody that is donated super chats. It means the world. And thank you to all the wonderful, insightful comments that you guys leave, because I find way more information out by your comments and the sources in which you cite. So keep on doing it. Never assume I know. Just lay it down, because a webcam doesn't make you intelligent, So keep laying down that knowledge, and we will see you guys next week for the finale of Westworld, and then we can talk about devs. We can talk about all these shows. So we will see you guys soon, guys. We are going to be live for 2 more minutes, so mute yourself.
Can I take my limbic yet?
Just know whatever you say is live.